at us. He's got his eyes open, and he's trying to breathe. I told her that she needed to help him, but she just...
She talks about how Darren is standing there with his hands in his pockets, and when Darlie starts spraying that silly string, he just can't believe it.
Talking on the telephone.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh shit! Oh my God! That was nothing more than me being able to tell Devin happy birthday.
Me being able to tell Devin happy. You being able. How in the fuck can you be? Okay, so I'm back to the Darlie Routier fact and fiction page. You can find it on Google. It's written by our friend Mary Moody. I just want to be sure it's all done in video form so we can refer to it when we need to in case this website goes down. I've already done the introduction, the who's who, the Routier statements, the arrest warrant, and author Barbara Davis. Now we're going to get into some of the supporter myths. Supporter myth number 1. This isn't the main, they're in no particular order, but us non-supporters know that she was really concerned about the prints that she thought was beyond the knife because she held the knife. She used it to kill those babies with. It says Darlie wasn't worried about the fingerprints on the knife. She only mentioned it once during the emergency call, and that was in response to the 911 operator telling her not to touch anything. Well, no. Darlie said it first, but I'm going to go through here. Here's excerpts from the 911 call. Darlie, some man came in, stabbed my baby, stabbed me. I woke up. I was fighting. He ran out through the garage, threw the knife down. Y'all look out in the garage. Y'all look out in the garage. They left a knife laying on the... She mentions it twice. There's a knife. Don't touch anything. I already picked it up. Darlie's statements on this call about seeing, touching, and picking up the knife are not suspicious in and of themselves. In fact, she had uttered those words to 911 operator, and only to the 911 operator. It would have raised a single red flag. Wouldn't have raised a single red flag. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Darlie's concern about the fingerprints began with the emergency call, but it didn't end there. It continued through the rest of that night and through the next couple of days. David Waddell, first officer on the scene, testified for the prosecution. Greg Davis asks, does she volunteer information about picking up the knife? Yes. Is it in response to anyone's question or direction? No. She told me she picked up the knife and thought she had messed up the fingerprints. That's indirect testimony. There has been speculation that Waddell simply overheard Darlie telling the 911 operator about the knife. Not so. She pointed to the kitchen bar and told Waddell that she picked it up and laid it on the counter. And she told me that she probably should not have done that because she messed up the fingerprints on the knife. Christopher Wilgotz, Baylor Hospital nurse, testified that he did not ask any Darlie any questions whatsoever. At one point in time, she stated aloud that she picked up the knife after the attacker dropped it. She was concerned that maybe her fingerprints have obscured the attacker's fingerprints. Shook. When she made the statement, had you asked her anything about the incident? No, absolutely not. Volunteered information. Early the next morning, Darlie told detectives Patterson and Frosch, I picked up the knife. I shouldn't have picked up the knife because I probably covered up the fingerprints. I shouldn't have picked up the knife. Darlie was still concerned enough about the fingerprints 2 days after the murders that she mentioned it to Dr. Dillon. Shook. Toby Shook. Did you check her over before she was released and discharged? Yes, I did. Okay, did she talk to you about anything that the police had asked her? Yes, she did. I can't remember the specific details, but it concerned a knife which she was attempting to explain. I would assume some piece of evidence that she had been confronted with, and she was trying to explain to me how this was somehow, she could explain the reason it had something on it. I don't remember specific details, but it was about a knife. Darlie made some other curious comments on the 911 call. Now this is very telling because her mood changed. She switched from one mode to another just like that. Somebody who intentionally walked in here and did it, Darren. There's nothing touched. And then another thing she said, I saw them, Darren. Darren, I don't know who it was. We got to find out who it was. These are 3 different sentences that she's using to establish her alibi, to establish that she didn't do this. Those are just 3 statements. But this one right here, if you listen to the 911 call, he's apparently asking her, who did this? Somebody who did it intentionally walked in here and did it, Darren. She snapped at him. She had no time for anger. And then she went right into, there's nothing touched. Listen to the 911 call. These are at different times. But they just show 3 different statements where she's establishing her alibi. And when she was placed in the ambulance, Darlie said to her husband, Darren, you have to promise me you will find this man. He killed our babies. To be perfectly frank, it reeks of staging. Darlie's sons were dying in front of her. The last thing a mother would be preoccupied with at that moment, besides the fingerprints, is who done it. Unless, of course, you done it. In which case, you would want to deflect attention from yourself immediately. Someone came in here. That was the first thing she said on 911 call. Someone came in here. Not my kids are bleeding. They're, my kids have been stabbed. Someone came in here. One of Darren's socks was discovered on the ground 75 yards from the Routier home. A considerable amount of Darlie's DNA was found in the toe of the sock, more than what would be deposited from a light touch. Both of the boys' blood was on the sock, but Darlie's blood was not. If an intruder had somehow used that sock while stabbing the boys and struggling with Darlie, her blood most likely would have been on the sock as well. That's a fact. Why is Darlie's blood on it, not on the sock? Because it was on her hand. She had splurting wounds. How did none of Darlie's blood get on that sock, but the boys were? Supporters questioned whether the sock was actually Darren's. It was. He even admitted it, however reluctantly on the stand. Davis, you told Corinne Wells. Now, Corinne Wells is the person who bought the house on Bond Street after they moved out. Darren went back to Bond Street to look at the screens, actually. He's trying to see if there was any cuts in the screens. I don't know what his logic was there. I don't know why Corinne Wells didn't take the stand either. You told Corinne Wells on 12/3/96 that was your sock, that it had come from your utility room. Yes, sir. Here's the conclusion on that. As it turned out, the knife handle wasn't conductive to fingerprints. Okay, let me explain that to you. The knife handles were white knife handles. They were made with Bakelite brand plastic. If you look up Bakelite, Baklite, with the trademark blend plastics, they are made to where they do not hold salts and oils from your skin. They're made that way. There wouldn't have been no fingerprints on that knife. There was none. So she didn't know that they were made with Bakelite brand plastic. She needed an explanation for why an intruder's prints weren't found on the handle, i.e., I picked up the knife and messed up the prints. She feared that her own fingerprints might be on the knife. Whatever her thinking was, a reasonable inference to draw from the facts is that Darlie, attempting to avoid leaving fingerprints, put Darren's sock over her hand before stabbing the boys. Despite her precautions, a nickel-sized spot of their blood stained the sock, and the sock came from the Routier home. Darlie had to get rid of it. She took it to the alley, perhaps assuming that the police wouldn't search outside property. Or she may have attempted to throw it in the nearby garbage can or down the storm drain. And missed. Upon returning to the house, she saw Damon was still alive, and had crawled across the family room. The sock was gone, and time was short. She grabbed the knife and stabbed David again after inflicting some or all of her own wounds. I believe that she attacked him twice. I honestly believe that he was trying to get away from his mother. I believe that. I believe that he did say, "Mommy, mommy. Mommy, mommy, because you're doing this to me. Mommy, mommy, stop."